All right, we're gonna try to do it again. $10, 5 family dinners.
I wish Starbucks was in the budget today. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Leah, and this is Savvy Saute. I'm starting out at the grocery store that I feel like has the best markdown produce section in my entire city. But no luck on the bread. Usually their bread is not marked down as good as Walmart bread would be marked down, but the produce is what I came for. Here I found a sweet potato and 3 russet potatoes for 39 cents. I was definitely most excited about this entire package of peppers, some poblano, some jalapeno. So excited, 55 cents. I was thinking getting a can of corn for one of a Mexican dishes would be a good idea, but 2 ears of corn for less than the cost of a can of corn was actually a pretty good deal. Even though there was a spot on it, it would be totally fine. The cheapest green vegetable option I was able to find were the runner beans, and that was only 99 cents a pound. So I went ahead and weighed out what I needed just for my family for one dinner, which was definitely under $1. This supermarket does not usually have great prices on meat, but I was going to check the clearance just in case. In a couple of areas for other things they might have reduced for a good price, but didn't see anything there. Then I went to go check for rice, and I actually found a better price on rice than I would have at Walmart because it was on clearance. And I definitely did not need an entire pound for what I was planning on cooking, so this worked out pretty good.
Okay, I think we did pretty good. So far, I have the produce that we need, and hold on, 218. So first, 218. Let's turn this around, hold on. So some rice, and that would have been corn. What else did we get for $1.23? Corn, peppers, something else. And then 26 cents for some beans. Hello.
My next local grocery store still had the closeout special on their Just Add Water Martha White cornbread, so I picked one of those up because I knew I wouldn't have to add anything else to it. And I also wanted some good canned tomatoes that would add some flavor to a dish. So I was looking at what they had. The fire roasted tomatoes that I wanted were a little bit higher than I was expecting, but I did end up finding some chili ready tomatoes, which had a lot of good things in them, and it was only 59 cents, the same price as the plain. I was hoping I could find some marked down meat that would work in some kind of soup or casserole, but they didn't have anything marked down there. And then my produce section is being completely moved. I hate when they rearrange the store. Have you seen that meme that talks about being an adult? You have a favorite burner on the stove and you get upset when the grocery store rearranges its produce. It's like, that's so true. added some cilantro, that way we could have something fresh, and it adds a lot of flavor to your dishes. So that was all I ended up picking up from this grocery store.
Okay, so I actually had to go back into that grocery store. I forgot my husband's medicine, so I went in. And as I went in, they were marking down some meat. So I went and checked, and they had brats for one of our meals. It's going to be awesome. Actually, 2 meals down to like $1.50. So I snagged those up. So I'm home now. I'm gonna go ahead and get this meat prepped and ready for the freezer, so that way any reduced meat is not gonna go bad before I use it. Very important when you're buying markdown items. And then I'm gonna open up the produce, show you exactly what was in the packages, and go over the prices.
The first dish that I decided to make was the jambalaya. I have mine made with a little bit of a kick to it, but you can make it as mild or spicy as you want. The day that I made this, it was freezing cold. I know even a lot of southern states right now are dealing with some crazy winter weather. We had an advisory out and even got 5 inches of snow. So it was definitely a good day to have something cozy and spicy. I started by getting the rice cooked, and instead of only cooking half the bag, which was the amount that I needed for this recipe, I decided to cook all of it. That way I could have it ready to go the next time I needed rice. For the cornbread, I just followed the directions on the back of the package, preheated my oven first. And this is the kind of cornbread that you only have to add water to the mix, so it's a really frugal option if you're just needing one batch of cornbread for the week. This bag of rice took forever to cook all the way through. I don't know if I did something wrong. I've never had rice take more than 20 to 25 minutes to cook on the stovetop, but I'm telling you, it took 45 minutes. Next, I got started with the peppers. You can use bell pepper, you can use jalapeno pepper, whatever kind you can find. These I thought tasted really great. They weren't super spicy. I left the seeds and I don't know what it's called, the white part inside the pepper. I left all that in there, which is supposed to keep more of spice intact, but you can use whatever kind of pepper you want. Once I got my skillet on the burner, getting hot, I prepped my sausage by taking it out of the casing. If you get ground sausage, you can skip that step, but this was what I was able to get on sale, so I took that extra step to do it myself. It wasn't a big deal. You could also just leave the sausages in the casing, cook them whole, and then once they're cooked all the way through, go ahead and slice it, chop it, however you want to serve it. But I like to have mine ground up into smaller pieces. Once you have the meat completely cooked and chopped, you're going to add the peppers. Normally when I make jambalaya, I will at this point also add some celery and onion, but because it was not in the budget, I used this one can that included some spices, dried onion, dried celery, dried green pepper, so I thought it would actually work out okay, and truthfully, it really did. I did not miss the onion or the celery, surprisingly. Now it's time for a generous helping of some Cajun seasoning. You're gonna let this simmer with that extra water for about 20 minutes. Let all of that meat and the vegetables get nice and flavorful, tender, and then once your rice is cooked, you can set aside, I'm setting aside half of it because I didn't need the whole portion. But when you have the right amount of rice in your pot, then you're gonna wanna transfer all of that good stuff into the larger pot. Technically, you could start with a larger pot for all of the meat and the vegetables, and then if you have rice that's already cooked, or the kind of rice that is boil in a bag or go in the microwave steamable bags, then just add that to the large stock pot. Then I also added 1 or 2 cans of water back to this large pot, and I let that simmer for about 20 minutes. Here you can see just how much that one batch of jambalaya served us. We even had enough leftovers for Dakota to take to work the next day for his lunch, and even that was a bigger portion than he wanted. What's amazing is that was with only 2 sausages, and it gave us 5 really good portions. The next meal we had was a chicken and rice soup, and I used one of our jalapeno peppers in it as well. I started by boiling all of the chicken that I was going to need for 2 meals. That ended up being 1.5 leg quarters. I separated a leg for a different meal, and then I just boiled the 2 thighs and 1 leg. I also added some chicken base to this because I wanted to get some extra broth out of it. I added a lot of salt and pepper and then several cups of water. By the time the chicken was fully cooked and falling off the bone, a lot of the liquid had evaporated. Next thing I had to do was separate all of the meat off of the bone, make sure I cleaned it, got the fat off. Now remember, this is chicken for 2 different recipes, so I wanted to separate half of the chicken and half of the broth into a bag to put in my freezer for another day. Once the chicken and the broth was separated, I put half of it into a large stock pot with a generous amount of water, and I really should have taken the time to let the broth sit in the fridge and let the fat separate so that it wouldn't have been quite so rich. There was a lot of oil that came in this broth. But I also added a good amount of salt and pepper. The white rice that we had cooked from earlier, I just added a cup of it, as well as some chopped jalapeno, and it was okay. It wasn't my favorite. It definitely should have had the fat separated, and we would have preferred it with some extra seasonings. Taco seasoning would have been really good. The next meal is one of our go-tos. It's one of our favorites in this house, and we don't even really consider it a budget meal. This is a Southwest or taco bowl, and I just used the other half of the broth and the chicken, and I used 2 ears of corn that was fresh. I used some jalapeno that we had. One of them had turned red, and it was beautiful, and I just put all of that into my cast iron skillet, and then also a really good amount of that taco seasoning. Again, that is our absolute favorite seasoning to use. I completely forgot about all of that beautiful fresh cilantro. I would have added half of it to the skillet at this point once it was bubbling, and then I would have topped more onto the bowls once I served it over top of that white rice that I had left. But either way, it was delicious. The key ingredient was that taco seasoning, so don't skimp on it. Make sure you have that, and it turned out perfect. We even had leftovers for Dakota to take to lunch the next day. The fourth meal that I made was using the brats that we had from that one package. I had 3 left, and then we also had some peppers. So I went ahead and first started by searing the brats, and this takes a while. While those are working in the skillet, I peeled and cubed the 1 sweet potato that we had along with the leftover peppers. And then once the sausages were pretty much seared on both sides, I went ahead and stuck all of the vegetables into the skillet along with some water to help it steam, and then some oil just on top of the vegetables. The sausages do not need it. And then I also put a good amount of seasoning. This one is just a salt and garlic pepper kind of combo. At that point, you'll go ahead and stick the whole thing into the oven at about 350, 375. And we were too busy that day for me to end up being able to finish filming it. But I ended up slicing the sausages and searing it a little bit longer, and then this entire meal fed 3.5 of us. For the 5th and final dinner out of our $10 challenge, I decided to make a fried chicken dinner. So for the ingredients, I had the 3 leftover russet potatoes, as well as the green beans that we picked up. I started by getting those washed and prepped. I cut off the little hard ends, and then I cut them in half. Well, I bet you already know how to spell them. What's the first word? How do you spell pink? Okay, good job. See, it won't be hard. With the russet potatoes, I just washed those off real quick, and then without even peeling them, I diced them up into larger chunks. We sometimes just prefer to have steakhouse style mashed potatoes with the peel, so if you don't prefer it that way, just peel them off and then go from there. Put them into some water, let them boil until they're tender, and then you'll be able to make them into mashed potatoes. For the fried chicken, I had to start by splitting between the thigh and the leg. So use a big knife and put pressure down straight on the cutting board through the bone between the 2 pieces, and it'll pop right off. Then for the breading, I had a little bit of flour. I used 1 egg and a splash of milk. I put about a half a cup of canola oil into my cast iron skillet and turned the burner on to medium. And then I went ahead, while that was heating up, got the chicken coated in the egg and butter and then into the flour. But if you don't happen to have those pantry staples, then it's going to be delicious if you just put the chicken onto a baking dish, sprinkle it with some oil, and then whatever seasoning you have. We do that pretty often and it's delicious, but I wanted to change it up a little bit and make some fried chicken. It's really important to make sure that chicken is cooked all the way through, and the only way for me to know if it's truly cooked is if I use a thermometer. If you poke the chicken and the juices come out, the juices should absolutely be clear. If there's any pink to it at all, then it is not going to be cooked all the way. And there you have it, fried chicken the way that I know how to do it. As soon as it comes out of the oil, sprinkle it with some salt, and then if you want to serve it with some kind of dressing, sauce, honey, whatever you prefer. The mashed potatoes are really easy, but you could do fried potatoes, you could do baked potatoes, roasted potatoes, any number of way. And then the green beans, just have some butter, salt, and pepper. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you were inspired seeing that you can have delicious food without spending a lot of money. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, tell your friends, like, comment, share, and I will see you in the next video.